Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode, Herbalism and Identity, Overcoming Imposter Syndrome. My name is Justaria. If you are new here, you are most certainly welcome. And if you are a returning listener, thank you so much for your continued listen and support. I appreciate you very, very much. Tonight, we are going to talk about something that every herbalist, no matter how trained, how experienced, or how naturally gifted, faces at some point. Dun, 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 dun. The imposter syndrome. The imposter syndrome is that quiet voice that asks, who am I to do this work? Do I know enough? Is it safe for me to help people? Am I a real herbalist or just pretending? If you've ever felt that, then tonight's episode is definitely for you. And I want you all to know that you are not broken, you are not behind, and you are definitely not alone. Tonight, we're also going to explore herbalism and identity, how imposter syndrome shows up uniquely in our field, and how to move through it without denying your humanity, your growth, or the gifts that you have been given by the Most High. So let's talk about first why herbalists feel imposter syndrome so deeply. And this is very important because herbalism is not just a skill. It is an identity. It's relational. It's ancestral. It's community centered. It's knowledge you carry, observe, remember, interpret, and embody. When you step into herbalism, what you're stepping into is a lineage, a tradition, a responsibility, a calling. So the stakes do feel higher, not because they are higher than in any other field, but because they're personal. Herbalism lives in constant and beautiful tension between science and tradition, or clinical practice and folk wisdom, formal education and lived experience, ancestral knowledge with modern evidence, or intuition and regulation. So every herbalist stands in the middle of these intersecting worlds, learning how to honor each one of them without losing themselves in the pool of another. So it's not a surprise herbalists often ask, do I belong here? Am I qualified? Am I doing this right? Because we often feel imposter syndrome because there is no clear official path that tells you now you're qualified. There's no universal certification that everyone agrees on, no standard curriculum, no single definition of expertise, and no set timeline for when someone becomes a real herbalist, as they say. Herbalism is an ongoing journey, more like a lifelong continuum than a career with levels or finish lines. But even though the field itself doesn't have those rigid milestones, many herbalists still pressure themselves to reach some imaginary point of perfection or completion and feel like imposters when they really aren't. Let's look at where imposter syndrome comes from when it comes to herbalists. Let's talk about the roots of the roots. I'm going to give you a few points of where I feel that it comes from. And as I always say, get your notepads, pencils, pens, back of a receipt, notebook, whatever you got, to write down these, because if you're struggling with imposter syndrome in any area of your life, not just in herbal medicine, then I feel like this will help you get to the root of that. So number one, imposter syndrome comes from the pressure to know everything. What we have to understand as herbalists is that plants are infinite, right? Pathophysiology is infinite. Human bodies, human lives, all are infinite. But in our hearts, many of us feel we need to be walking encyclopedias before we are allowed to practice. And the reality of it is that you don't. You don't have to start out knowing everything. Number two, I believe imposter syndrome comes from herbalism is both a science and an art. That's from the fact of that. That means that there will always be gray areas. There will always be clinical judgment calls. There will always be ever-evolving research and shifting traditions. And gray areas are where self-doubt loves to hide. Point number three, historical erasure and gatekeeping. And we've talked about that in a podcast before. So many herbal traditions were marginalized, outlawed, or dismissed as unscientific, and those messages still linger with us today. For those herbalists that are coming from ancestral, cultural, or community medicine lineages, this can create a tension between honoring your traditions and fearing judgment because you don't fit inside of a box, their box. Number 4, comparison culture. Social media shows us finished tincture shells, perfect gardens, advanced protocols, and people who seemingly know everything. But rarely do we see their messy drafts, their doubts, their fears, their failed batches, that client calling them, going off on them because they gave them too much or too little of something. You don't see the imperfections on social media. All you see is a carefully controlled lifestyle, if you will, that people want to show you in herbal medicine, but that's not the reality of it. We go through ebbs and flows and ups and downs. We make stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We deal with people, and anytime you deal with people in any type of service industry, they come with their own ups and downs and headaches. So, but you're not always going to see that on social media. So we can't compare ourselves, right? We shouldn't compare ourselves, especially to herbalists on the internet. Unless they're being transparent, and there are some, there really are. And then number 5, responsibility. Herbalists carry a really strong, profound sense of responsibility, and that weight can shape how we see ourselves. We care deeply about the people who come to us, their safety and their well-being, and the trust that they place in our guidance. We don't want to cause harm. We don't want to overlook something important or offer support that isn't truly aligned with what they need. That level of care right there is beautiful, but sometimes it transforms into self-doubt. The very desire to be safe and ethical and effective can make us second guess our knowledge or our right to show up in this role in the first place. In this way, caring deeply can disguise itself as uncertainty, not because we are unqualified, but because we're conscientious. We really pay attention. So let me be transparent, because I think transparency is very important. It's a very important aspect of herbal medicine and herbalist and anyone in a teaching role or teaching profession. Transparency is key. So let me be honest. There were some days that I felt like, what the heck am I doing? Right? What am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? Why am I here? And there were days I felt like you're saying, you know what? I'm good. I think I'm just going to move on to something else. Days I felt behind, days I wondered how everyone else seemed so sure, while I felt like I was in progress. People would jump on to things that I would say or things I would teach and I'm just like, wow, they're acting like this is just so profound. And in my mind, I'm just like, I learned that, and I just want to share it, but I still don't feel adequate enough to for these accolades you're giving me, but I just felt like I was in progress. And for me, one of those moments happened at a vendor show. I was selling my herbal products, and as people came up to my table, I explained how each formula worked, how the herbs supported the body, how the physiology behind the actions, what that was. And most people listened with interest. But then I had this man walk up to me, and he asked about my products, and I explained the benefits just like I always do. And when I finished, he said, "Yeah, okay, doctor," in a very mocking and dismissive tone. And then he walked off. And for a second, it kind of threw me off. I was like, okay, that was unnecessary, But at that moment, I really began to get in my head, and I questioned whether I explained things clear enough to him. And I felt myself slipping into that worry. Like, did I say something wrong? Did I sound like I was pretending to be something that I'm not? And then I caught myself. I snatched my whole soul. I was just like, Justaria, no. I reminded myself, no, I am not a doctor, and neither am I trying to be one. I am an herbalist who understands the body, understands plants, and understands how to communicate that information. Because it's moments, if you're not careful, it's moments like that that'll really stick in your mind and really highlight those areas of inadequacy that you might feel based on somebody, being a nut, But trust me, that wasn't the only time. I've done tons of vendor shows over the years. And at these vendor shows, someone would occasionally walk up with an issue that I had never heard of before. And immediately that fear would rise up in my chest again. It's that fear of looking incompetent, of not having the right answer, or of not being able to help. And I would feel unprepared and I'd feel small. And I questioned whether I was even being effective or whether I knew enough or whether I should even be doing this. All of these things were roaming through my head. There was a truth that I eventually learned. That feeling didn't mean that I wasn't meant to be an herbalist. That feeling meant that I was becoming one. And what I'm saying is growth is uncomfortable, but it's not a sign that you're unqualified. It's a sign that you're alive inside of your purpose. All right. And my dad used to make me listen to a motivational speaker called Les Brown over and over again. And at the time when I was young, I was like, oh gosh, I got to listen to this man again and again and again and again. But sometimes I find myself just listening to him now, especially when he comes on YouTube. And one of the things that he said was that you have to monitor the conversations that you are having in your head. And because at those times of not feeling adequate, I was, kind of living in those moments, in those conversations, I wasn't monitoring them at all. It wasn't until I got away from the situations and I began to sit back and think about it. That's when I could actually sit and monitor those conversations that I was having in my head at that time and really, try to understand why, where's this coming from? What is this rooted in? And I realized that I'm growing. I realized that growth and, walking out your purpose, which is oftentimes 20 times bigger than you, it's all a part of the process. And so, like I said, it's a sign that you're alive inside of your purpose. Let's reframe identity and look at what makes someone an herbalist in the first place. Let's define this clearly because clarity often dissolves shame. You are an herbalist when you build relationships with plants. You are an herbalist when you work to understand the human body. You commit to learning, improving, and practicing safely. You are an herbalist when you support people, whether one-on-one, in community, or through education. You are an herbalist when you root your work in integrity and in care. You honor the lineage you're connected to. You show up for this path consistently. An herbalist is not defined by how many certificates you have, or whether you wildcraft or buy bulk, or how many clients you see, or the number of herbs you have memorized, or the volume of your herb wall, or not even your social media following, nor whether or not you compare to other herbalists. Herbalism is a practice. It's not a title that you earn once and then you just hold on to it forever. It isn't something that you master one day and never have to revisit. It's a living, breathing commitment that evolves as you evolve. I'm not the same person that I am today that I was when I first started. And each time I learn something new, each time I write a book, or each time that I create a product or talk to a client or just even interact with the plants, I evolve. Herbalism is about a relationship, not a performance. It asks for presence, curiosity, humility, and consistency far more than it asks for perfection. And like all meaningful relationships, it grows through time, through intimacy, attention, and honest engagement, not through flawless execution, because we're not all perfect. And relationships themselves are really central to this work that we do. Herbalism is built on relationships, not only with the plants, but also with the people that we serve. The more you understand your clients, their stories, their lived experiences, and their needs, the more grounded and effective your business becomes. And it's also important to build relationships with other herbalists, because this will create a network of support for you, shared wisdom, as well as community resilience. When we can learn together, share our experiences, and lean on one another, we deepen both our knowledge and our confidence. In herbal medicine, connection is really a big part of the medicine that people don't really think about. but it's huge. Let's look at evidence-based confidence. And this is using your knowledge to reduce the imposter syndrome. Okay. So again, get your notebooks out if you don't already have them. But I'm going to give you a grounded, practical side, because confidence doesn't come from knowing everything. Confidence comes from knowing how to know. And I always say, know what you know and go know what you don't. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of herbalists and people that I talk to, that's one of the things. It's like, I don't know everything. How am I going to know all of this? And what if people ask me something I can't answer? All of these things. And, I don't have the confidence. I couldn't do that. One of the ways you have confidence is that you know what you know. You can only talk about what you know. You can't talk about what you don't. So if there's something that there's a pathway that you want to pursue in herbal medicine, let's say you want to work with pets, you want to do the vet side of herbal medicine, well, know what you're supposed to know when it comes to, recommending herbs for animals. Go know about the human body and know about formulation, know about which herbs are safe for pets, and stick with that. You don't have to know all the end all be all in 500 different remedies. Trust me, you don't have to know that. And herbalists who really feel steady and confident in this field, they have systems, frameworks, right? They have a system for assessing clients. They have a framework for researching herbs. They have a method for cross-referencing safety. They have a protocol for making decisions. They have clarity on when they need to make referrals, if it's, especially if it's beyond their scope of understanding. And they have an ethical foundation. So when you look at that, what you have is structure. Even if it's simple, if you have a structure in place, if you have a system, a framework, a method, a protocol, if you have clarity, right? Then even if it's very simple, it doesn't have to be that deep. Your confidence will rise. But more than that, these structures will make you an herbalist who is serious, who is thoughtful, who is intentional about how you help others. Having a clear process shows your clients that you're not just guessing, you're grounded in a method. It keeps you focused, it helps you deliver effective support, and it communicates to others that you're confident, not because you know everything, but because you have a pathway, a plan, a business. You know where you're going. A curious herbalist is safer than a certain herbalist, and a reflective herbalist is stronger than a rigid one. So let's switch gears real quick, and let me give you 5 ways to actively overcome imposter syndrome. Number 1, claim your lane. Now let me say something here. Don't let clients or even other herbalists make you feel like you have to know everything about everything. Because trust me, they're going to try, whether it's intentional or not. You may have someone say to you, oh, you don't know about this procedure, or, oh, you've never worked with this herb, as if knowing every inch of the herbal universe is just like the standard, right? But the truth is, there is information that they don't know either. So it's like, yes, I may not know all of the phytochemicals that are in beautyberry, right? But you may not know all the phytochemicals that are in turmeric. You may not know the 5 most strongest potent herbs for people that have mineral deficiencies. We all don't know everything. And trust me, I've had people approach me with confidence and say they already knew certain parts of herbal formulation or certain plant actions, only to realize later that they only understood a piece of the process. Because trust me, sometimes, you come to me like, oh, I already know that. I already know that. I already know that. Oh, okay. Well, did you know da-da-da-da-da-da? I didn't know that. Yeah. Because we don't know it all. All right. So understand, you're not behind. You're not lacking. You're not supposed to be a walking encyclopedia. You don't need to be an expert in everything. Just define your lane. What excites you? Maybe your lane is digestive herbs or nervous system support, or maybe you're really key on postpartum care or kitchen herbalism, chronic stress, or community classes. When you define your lane, okay, when you choose where your energy is, your passions lie, your curiosity naturally flow, doubt loses its grip. You become more grounded, you become more confident, and more effective, not because you know everything, but because you know your thing deeply and well. Number 2, use a beginner's mind, even when you're not a beginner. A beginner's mind isn't about lacking knowledge. It's about staying open, staying curious, unthreatened by what you don't know. Herbalism rewards curiosity, not perfection. Number 3, build your herbalist identity ritual. Okay? And when we talk about identity, here's another layer that I want you to consider. Think about your passions. Think about your dreams as they relate to herbal medicine, and ask yourself, what areas really excite me? What topics light something up on the inside of me? What herbs or body systems or traditions or client populations spark endless curiosity? Where do I feel that pull? Because these sparks that you have on the inside of you, they're not random. They are clues to your herbal identity. They help you define the kind of herbalist that you are becoming. Identity doesn't just form from what you know, it forms from what calls to you. One powerful way to nurture that identity is to build your own herbalist identity ritual, which is a small, consistent practice that reminds you who you are and who you are growing into. And this might be, let's say, a morning tea with your herbs, or 10 minutes of studying a monograph, or harvesting or touching a plant each week, or journaling formulas, or tracking observation, reading clinical cases, or reviewing materia medica. These tiny little rituals deepen your relationship to the work. They keep you connected to your path, even on days where you may feel unsure or you may feel like just giving up. Identity is built through repetition, curiosity, and engagement, not through titles or credentials. So don't let that be your full focus. It grows from the daily ways you choose to show up for the plants or for your studies and for the people that you want to help. Because if you have a passion, or you feel a pull or a call, or you feel drawn to this, understand that the gifts and talents that we have been given are for the service of man. So I always tell people, when they walk around like, I don't have a purpose and I don't know what my purpose is. Everybody's reading 45,000 books to figure out what their purpose is. But the thing is, it's not the purpose. Your purpose is to be of service to man. That's your purpose, right? The key is to figure out what your gifts are, because you are to use those gifts for the service of man. So focus on what the gifts are. Focus on what your dreams are, your passions, these type of things. All right. Number 4, practice transparency with your clients, or if you have students, your students. So it's okay to say, you know what, I want to double check that for you. Or let me research this herb drug interaction. I have a lot of people that come to me that, along the way of their conversation, they're like, oh yeah, and I take this prescription drug, and oh yeah, I take that prescription drug. And I'm like, huh? And right then and there, it's like they'll say something about their condition, and I'll say, okay, typically this type of herb would be good for that type of condition. But then they keep talking and they're like, yeah, I'm also on warfarin, and yeah, I'm also on this and that. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know how those are going to interact. I have to go look into that. So it's okay to have that transparency. Now, the old me would be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm just trying to figure some things out, stumbling over words. And in my head the whole time, like, oh my gosh, I really don't know what the interactions are. I don't know what to say. I don't have the right answer. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Now I'm just like, let me double check that for you. Or let me research this herb drug interaction just to make sure that it's safe. I don't know it off the top of my head, but let me look into that. Or let's pause right here and then let me gather some more information. Now, are all of the clients, after I say that, oh, thank you, oh, great, that's amazing? No, not all of them think like that, and not all of them say that. They're just, some people are like, what? I need this answer now. But I can't give it to you now. And it doesn't make me any less skilled. What it makes me is safer, more trustworthy, and more grounded, because I'm not just going to shoot something off the top of the head. So be transparent with your clients and your students. If you don't know something, don't be afraid to say that. Number 5, surround yourself with community. We are not put on this earth to be in isolation. Now, there are moments and times and periods in our lives where we are isolated, right? But their ED is past tense or stopping, right? The D, stop. So it's for a certain period of time. It's not an ing, meaning it's forever ongoing. You're consistently isolating yourself. No, you have to surround yourself with community. But in those times of isolation, sometimes you may need to hear from the Most High, or sometimes, you may need to get more clarity on some things and you don't want outside influences. So yeah, there are times where you have to isolate yourself, but it's not all the time. And imposter syndrome, if you're somebody that lives in isolation, imposter syndrome grows there. So you don't want to stay in isolation. You want to surround yourself with community. But when you talk to other herbalists, what you'll start to see and learn is that everyone is learning. No one feels finished. And we all have gaps somewhere. Sometimes people just need you or maybe someone else to be that first person to say, yeah, I kind of messed that up. Yeah, there's sometimes I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Yeah, you know what? That client really got on my nerves. Like sometimes people, especially when in these groups, they just need one person to say what they've always said in their head. And then what that does is give them confidence to say, oh, well, you know what? You're right. Like I did this one formula for this client and they didn't do it like I said. And then they went to 5 other people and then they got 5 other remedies and now their kidneys are all jacked up. Trust me. Trust me. Community will normalize the journey. Okay? It will make you feel like, oh, you know what? I'm not a nut. I'm not a spook. I'm not a snake oil salesman. I'm not, an idiot. Okay? And I'm not crazy. So get involved with community because it truly matters. No one is an island. And if you are somebody, let's say, that lives in a foreign land, or let's say you may live in a rural area, maybe you're the only herbalist in your community, your town, or whatever, hop on the internet and connect with other herbalists. Let's connect here. Building connection is important because, like I said, community normalizes the journey. So in closing, if you take one thing from what I said tonight, let it be this: you belong here. Yep. You belong here. Not because you know everything, not because you never doubt, not because you do it perfectly. You belong here because you care. You study, you grow, you show up. You listen to the plants, to the body, to your community, to your intuition or Holy Spirit. Imposter syndrome isn't a sign that you're unqualified. It's a sign that you are aware of your responsibility. You're honoring the work by wanting to do it well. But you, exactly as you are, right now, today, are an herbalist. Not someday, not when you finish another training, not when you feel enough. Now, right now. And thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this lineage, a part of this community, and this moment in herbal medicine. So until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and stay rooted in who you are becoming. And if you like what you heard, like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on all of my social media sites at The Demystified Herbalist. Also, if you are interested in continuing to learn and gather all the information and resources you can, head over to my website at www.thedemystifiedherbalist.com. Tons of recipes, tons of resources over there. So head over there as you are on this growing and ever evolving journey. Get all the information that you can and that you need. And until next time, family, I'm out.